Jungkook pleads with Jimin. Smile. What he said left everyone speechless. Jungkook begs Jimin to smile during a shattered night of secrets, and one confession changes everything forever. The chandelier crashed before anyone could scream. Glass exploded across the marble floor in a rain of diamonds, scattering beneath polished shoes and trembling hands. Music from the orchestra cut off in one strangled note. Hundreds of guests in black silk and silver masks turned toward the center of the grand hall where smoke rose in pale ribbons and the lights flickered like a dying pulse. Jimin stood beneath the broken chandelier, not moving. A thin line of blood traced from his temple to the edge of his jaw, bright against skin as pale as winter moonlight. His tailored suit, immaculate only moments ago, was dusted with glittering shards. He looked less like a man than a statue carved from grief. Then Jungkook shoved through the crowd. Jimin! His voice cracked through the stunned silence. Chairs scraped, someone gasped. Cameras were hurriedly lowered. This gala had been built for smiles, headlines, charity, power. No one had paid to witness panic. Jungkook dropped to his knees in the broken glass without caring that it sliced through the fabric of his trousers. He reached for Jimin's face with shaking hands, searching for injuries, for consciousness, for proof that the person in front of him was still here. Jimin's eyes were open. That was worse. They were fixed on nothing, dark and empty, as if whatever had lived inside them had stepped out and locked the door behind it. Look at me, Jungkook whispered. No response. Around them, security shouted into radios. Staff rushed to clear the hall. Perfume mingled with dust and the metallic scent of blood. Somewhere, a violin string snapped with a sharp cry. Jungkook cupped Jimin's cheeks more firmly. Please. Still nothing. Then, softer, with the desperation of a man speaking to the edge of a cliff, Jungkook said, smile. Several people near enough to hear stiffened in disbelief. Smile. At a moment like this. Jimin blinked once, slowly. His gaze drifted toward Jungkook as if returning from miles away. Why, he asked. The single word was hoarse, scraped raw. Jungkook swallowed, his throat worked visibly. Because when you stop smiling, terrible things happen. A murmur spread through the hall. Jimin stared at him for a long time, then gave a laugh so hollow it chilled everyone who heard it. You're 7 years too late. The room seemed to inhale. Jungkook went white. He had feared many things tonight, an ambush, another anonymous threat, the scandal brewing in whispers, the envelope that had arrived at dawn with no sender and only 2 words inside, he remembers. He had not feared the past speaking aloud. Jimin pushed Jungkook's hands away and stood carefully, shards crunching beneath his shoes. Blood slid down his neck, he didn't wipe it. People parted instinctively as he walked. He carried silence around him like a weapon. Jungkook rose after him. Jimin, wait. Jimin stopped at the foot of the staircase but did not turn. The grand hall of the Han estate glittered with old money and newer lies. Gold leaf ceilings arched overhead. Velvet curtains framed windows tall as cathedrals. The richest people in Seoul had gathered here to donate millions and photograph their generosity. Now they watched 2 men ruin the evening by telling the truth. You told me to come tonight, Jimin said, voice calm enough to be dangerous. You said it was important. It is. You said no one would get hurt. I believed that. At last Jimin looked back over his shoulder. His smile appeared suddenly, beautiful, precise, empty enough to drown in. That was your mistake. You always believe the version of the world that loves you most. The word struck harder than the falling chandelier. Jungkook remembered another smile. A smaller room, rain on windows, Jimin barefoot in an oversized sweater, laughing because Jungkook had burned noodles and called it cuisine. He remembered warmth, ordinary light, the illusion that fame could not poison private things. Then he remembered the night it all ended. Headlines. Rumors. A leaked photograph. Jimin standing at the doorway with a suitcase and eyes swollen from crying. You chose silence, Jimin had said then. No, Jungkook had answered too late, I chose fear. Now fear had returned, older and more expensive. A woman in emerald silk descended from the upper balcony with the authority of someone accustomed to obedience. Madam CEO, patron of the gala, owner of half the city's newspapers, collector of debts disguised as favors. Her smile was thinner than thread. What an unfortunate accident, she said. Jimin's gaze sharpened. Was it? Madame Seo spread elegant hands. Surely you don't think I would endanger my own guests. You don't consider anyone here your guest, Jimin replied. Only assets. The crowd pretended not to listen. Jungkook stepped between them. Enough. Madame Seo's eyes moved to him, amused. You still defend people who would burn you. And you still mistake loyalty for weakness. Something dangerous flashed beneath her polished expression. My dear boy, she said softly, you asked me to protect him. Jimin's head turned sharply toward Jungkook. The air changed. Jungkook felt it at once, that instant before disaster when every sound becomes too clear, ice clinking in glasses, shoes shifting, a distant siren outside the estate gates. I never asked you to hurt him, Jungkook said. But you asked me to keep him from speaking. Jimin took one slow step backward. No, Jungkook said, listen to me. Is that true? Jimin asked, and the lack of emotion in his voice terrified Jungkook more than anger would have. He had imagined this confrontation 100 times. In none of them had Jimin sounded like a closed coffin. It's complicated. Jimin laughed again once. That means yes. He turned and strode toward the side corridor. Jungkook followed immediately, ignoring Madame Seo calling his name. The corridor beyond the ballroom was dimmer, lined with portraits whose painted eyes seemed eager for scandal. Their footsteps echoed over stone. Jimin moved fast despite the blood still drying at his temple. Stop running, Jungkook said. I'm walking. You know what I mean. Jimin halted so suddenly Jungkook nearly collided with him. When he turned, the composure cracked. His eyes blazed. For 7 years I was the villain in every story, bitter ex-lover, opportunist, unstable. Do you know what it's like to become gossip in the mouths of strangers? Jungkook opened his mouth, but Jimin cut him off. I couldn't get work, couldn't trust friends, couldn't sleep without hearing cameras. His voice shook now, not with weakness but with contained fury. And all that time you were protecting me. I was trying to stop worse things. Worse than destroying my life. Yes, Jungkook shouted, then lowered his voice when it bounced down the hall. Yes. Jimin stared. Jungkook dragged a hand through his hair. There were people attached to that scandal, powerful people. They wanted you gone because you knew something. I knew you lied beautifully. You knew about the accounts. Jimin's anger faltered. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Years ago, before everything collapsed, Jimin had accidentally seen files on Jungkook's laptop, transactions, shell companies, names hidden behind initials. Jungkook had snatched the computer, closed, and laughed it off as management nonsense. Jimin had never believed him. The charity network, Jungkook said quietly. Tonight's gala launders money through hospitals that don't exist, children's wings built only on paper. Donations disappear into campaigns, blackmail, disappearances. Jimin's breathing changed. And Madame Seo, he asked. She runs the public face, others run the rest. Why tell me now? Because someone sent me proof. They know you still have the copy. Jimin went very still. Jungkook saw the answer before he heard it. You do have it. Jimin's jaw tightened. I kept everything, he said. Of course he had. Jimin never threw pain away. He archived it, polished it, studied it until it became useful. A habit born from childhood in a house where affection vanished without warning and memory was the only evidence love had existed. You should have told me, Jungkook said. You should have trusted me. Neither could argue. Somewhere deeper in the estate, alarms began to ring. Red lights strobed faintly across the corridor walls. Jungkook cursed under his breath. They know. How? I followed you with security bypass codes, if they traced my access. The first gunshot cracked through the mansion. Guests screamed in the distance. Jimin's eyes widened only slightly. Your parties have worsened. Jungkook grabbed his wrist. Move. They ran. Down servants' stairs smelling of bleach and old wood, through a kitchen where chefs crouched beneath steel counters, past a pantry where shattered wine bottles bled across tile like dark rivers. Another gunshot, then another. Jimin pulled free once they reached the underground garage. Rows of luxury cars gleamed under fluorescent lights, engines revved as drivers panicked. Security guards shouted contradictory orders. You plan for everything except honesty, Jimin said, breathing hard. Classic. Jungkook slammed the unlock button on a black coupe. Mock me later. I've been doing it for years. Despite everything, Jungkook almost smiled. Then he saw blood soaking through Jimin's sleeve. When did that happen? Jimin glanced down as if surprised, probably when the chandelier tried to flirt. Get in the car. No. What? I'm not leaving until you tell me what you said in the ballroom. Jungkook stared at him. Sirens wailed beyond the estate gates. Somewhere above, more shouting erupted. This is not the time. It's the only time, Jimin stepped closer. You said when I stop smiling, terrible things happen. What did you mean? Jungkook's chest tightened. There were truths he had buried because speaking them made them real. 7 years ago, after Jimin left, Jungkook had spiraled into nights of reckless speed and chemical sleep. One storm-soaked dawn he crashed on a coastal road, waking upside down to shattered glass and seawater creeping in. He had laughed hysterically then because in the reflection of the cracked mirror he looked exactly as broken as he felt. The first person he called after surviving was Jimin. The number no longer worked. After that came the threats, the bargains, Madame Seo's offers, the trap disguised as rescue. When you left, Jungkook said, voice low, I became someone I didn't survive. Jimin's expression shifted, pain flickering beneath anger. You survived. Not all of me. Silence stretched between them. Then footsteps thundered down the ramp into the garage. Men in dark suits fanned out, weapons drawn. Madame Seo stepped calmly behind them, untouched by chaos. Take the drive, she said, leave the men. Jimin's eyes narrowed, drive. He looked at Jungkook. Jungkook said nothing. Understanding hit Jimin like another falling chandelier. The copy isn't with me, Jimin whispered, it's with you. Jungkook met his gaze. I took it from your apartment the night you left, he said, I kept it hidden. Jimin's face emptied of all expression. You stole the only leverage I had. I kept you alive. You kept me powerless. The guards advanced. Madame Seo sighed, this romance is exhausting. Jungkook stepped in front of Jimin. For the first time that night, fear left him completely. Maybe because there was nothing left to protect except the truth. Maybe because Jimin was behind him, breathing. Maybe because some loves become courage long after they stop being gentle. He lifted the key fob, pressed a hidden switch, and every screen in the garage lit up at once. Dashboards, security monitors, advertising panels. Files streamed across them in blazing columns of names, accounts, photos, signatures. Gasps erupted from guards and drivers alike. Madame Seo's mask finally cracked. What did you do? Jungkook looked at her and smiled. I learned from Jimin, he said, I keep everything. Then he turned slightly, just enough for Jimin to hear the next words meant only for him. Smile. And this time, slowly, bloodied and furious and heartbreakingly bright, Jimin did. Sirens howled beneath the estate like wolves trapped underground. Jimin's smile vanished the moment it appeared. The garage screens still blazed with stolen accounts, hidden transactions, photographs of politicians shaking hands with men whose names officially did not exist. Numbers rolled like fire over metal walls. Drivers stared, guards hesitated. Power had been exposed and even armed men feared what truth could cost them. Madame Seo did not. Shoot him, she said quietly. The first bullet struck the hood of the car beside Jungkook and screamed off into concrete. Jimin moved before thought. He grabbed Jungkook's jacket and dragged him sideways as a second shot shattered a windshield behind them. Glass burst like rain over their shoulders. Still dramatic, Jimin snapped. Still saving me, Jungkook shot back. I haven't decided. They ducked behind an SUV as guards spread through the garage. Tires squealed. Someone shouted for backup. Red emergency lights pulsed over chrome and blood. Jungkook reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim black device. Jimin stared. You brought explosives to a charity gala. It's a signal jammer. You looked cooler for 1 second. Jungkook almost laughed despite the gunfire. Missed you too. He activated the device. Nearby radios hissed into static, men cursed. Madame Seo's voice sliced through the chaos. Jimin. She stood untouched near the entrance ramp, heels immaculate, eyes sharp as razors. "You know how this ends," she called. "He uses people, he ruins them, then he asks for forgiveness with those eyes." Jimin's jaw tightened. Jungkook turned sharply. "Don't listen to her. She doesn't need to lie," Jimin said. "You already did enough." Another bullet punched through the SUV door inches from Jungkook's shoulder. "Can we schedule the emotional destruction later?" he said. Jimin grabbed his wrist again. "Move." They ran between rows of cars as alarms screamed. Jungkook led them toward a service elevator at the far wall. A guard lunged from behind a pillar. Jimin seized a loose tire iron from the floor and swung hard. Metal cracked against the man's wrist. The gun clattered away. Jungkook blinked. "You carry that kind of rage around often." "Only on formal occasions." They slammed into the elevator and hit the close button repeatedly while guards sprinted toward them. The doors nearly met when a hand jammed through. A guard forced the gap wider. Jungkook drove his shoulder forward. Jimin kicked the man square in the chest. He fell backward into two others and the doors shut with a violent clang. The elevator rose. For 3 seconds there was only their ragged breathing. Then Jimin turned and punched Jungkook in the mouth. Jungkook staggered into the mirrored wall. "What was that for?" "For stealing from me." "You hit hard." "I'm not done." He grabbed Jungkook by the collar and shoved him against the rail. His eyes were wet, furious, alive. "You entered my apartment after I left." "Yes." "You took the drive and watched me drown for 7 years." "I watched from farther away than you think." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Jimin's fist trembled against Jungkook's chest. "You don't get to protect people by deciding their life for them." Jungkook swallowed blood. "I know." "No, you know how to regret it. That comes later and costs less." The elevator dinged. Doors opened onto the dark west wing of the estate. Neither moved. Jungkook said softly, "Hit me again if it helps." Jimin stared at him for one long second, then released his collar with disgust. "I prefer longer punishments." They stepped into the corridor. This side of the mansion was unfinished, rarely used. Plastic sheets covered furniture. Portraits leaned against walls. Moonlight entered through tall windows and painted everything silver blue. Behind them, the elevator began descending again. "They'll track us," Jungkook said. "Then stop talking and think." "I am thinking." "That explains the disasters." Jungkook wiped blood from his lip. "You flirt when stressed." "I insult when stressed." "You always insult." Jimin did not answer. They moved quickly through the corridor until they reached an old music room. Jungkook pushed the doors open. Dust breathed up from the floor. A grand piano sat beneath covered chandeliers. Shelves of records lined one wall. Rain began tapping the windows outside, soft at first. Jimin stopped. His face changed in a way Jungkook had not seen in years. "You remember this room," Jungkook said. "I remember hiding here while your guests performed wealth." They had once escaped into this room during another gala, younger and reckless. Jimin had played one clumsy melody on the piano with 2 fingers while Jungkook laughed too loudly. They had kissed on the bench while orchestras played elsewhere. Memory entered like a ghost and stood between them. Jimin looked away first. "Don't use nostalgia as a weapon." "I'm not." "You always do it accidentally, worse." Jungkook crossed to a cabinet and pulled open a false panel hidden behind sheet music. Inside sat a handgun, cash, passports. Jimin stared. "Of course you keep emergency identities in a piano." "I grew up in this house." That sentence explains too much. He tossed Jimin one passport. Jimin caught it, opened it, frowned. "My fake name is Daniel." "You hated it when people mispronounced yours." "You made me Daniel." "It was a stressful day." Jimin almost smiled, then heard footsteps in the corridor. They froze. Voices outside. "Search every room." "Madam CEO." "Closer now." Jungkook gestured toward a narrow servants' passage behind the shelves. They slipped inside just as the music room doors opened. Darkness swallowed them. The hidden passage was barely wide enough for 2 people. Dust and cedar filled the air. They stood chest to chest, breathing quietly while flashlights moved through cracks in the wood. Outside, Madame CEO spoke. You always were sentimental, Jungkook. You hide in rooms where people once loved you. Jimin's expression hardened. He whispered, she knows you too well. Jungkook whispered back, that's what happens when your family sells you to allies. Jimin went still. What? Jungkook kept his eyes on the slats. My father owed her husband. After the crash, after the scandal, they offered to clean my image. In return, I became useful. You worked for them. I survived them. That's a prettier sentence. Outside, drawers were thrown open, wood splintered. Madame Sio's heels clicked closer. Do you know what disappoints me most? She said loudly enough for them to hear. Not betrayal, that is common, it is that he chose you, Jimin. Jimin's jaw flexed. A flashlight beam paused inches from the hidden seam. He would have inherited everything, Madame Sio continued. Instead, he ruined himself over a dancer from nowhere. The words landed like acid. Jimin moved before Jungkook could stop him. He shoved the panel open and stepped into the room. Madame Sio turned, startled for the first time that night. Say it again, Jimin said. Her guards raised weapons. Jungkook burst out behind him, Jimin. But Jimin did not look away from her. You built empires by deciding whose lives matter, he said, voice shaking with rage. Whose names belong in rooms, whose pain can be purchased. Madame Sio smiled coldly, and yet you came when invited. I came for answers. No, you came because part of you still wanted him to choose you. Silence hit like thunder. Jimin's face went pale. Jungkook stepped forward, I choose him now. Everyone turned. Even Jimin. Madame Sio laughed softly, how cinematic, 7 years late and surrounded by guns. Jungkook looked only at Jimin. I chose fear before I chose my family, my image, the machine that fed me. I let them bury you because I was weak. His voice cracked. I loved you then, I love you now, nothing useful came from denying it. Jimin stared as if the room had tilted. Don't, he whispered. I'm done lying. Don't say things I wanted years ago like they're gifts. The pain in his voice cut deeper than any bullet. Jungkook stepped closer anyway, then let them be apologies. Madame Sio lifted a hand. Enough. Her guards aimed. Then the mansion lights died. Complete darkness. Someone screamed. A gun fired wildly. Another. Jungkook lunged toward where he remembered Jimin standing. Hands collided in the dark and locked instantly. Got you, Jungkook breathed. Unfortunately, Jimin replied. Emergency lights flickered on seconds later. The guards were down. At the doorway stood 3 masked figures in black tactical gear. One lowered a baton and pulled off the mask. Taehyung. Jimin blinked, you're alive. Taehyung grinned, rude first sentence. Jungkook exhaled sharply, you took your time. I wanted dramatic timing. Behind him, 2 more figures removed masks, Namjoon and Hoseok. Madame Sio's composure finally cracked, impossible. Namjoon adjusted his glasses calmly, not impossible, just inconvenient. Jimin looked from face to face, stunned, what is this? The part, Taehyung said, stepping over a groaning guard, where you learn your ex-boyfriend has been trying to dismantle a criminal network with his annoyingly loyal friends for 7 years. Jimin slowly turned to Jungkook. You formed a secret vigilante team. Hoseok shrugged, we preferred task force. Taehyung said he preferred tragic martyrdom. Jungkook muttered, can everyone betray me later? Madame Sio backed toward the hall. Namjoon lifted a small remote. Police, Financial Crimes Division and 3 news networks now have everything from those screens. Her face whitened. You wouldn't. We already did. For the first time in decades, Madame Sio looked old. She stared at Jungkook with naked hatred. You burn your own bloodline for this. Jungkook answered without hesitation. They started the fire. Sirens thundered above ground. Real ones this time. Officers stormed the lower floors, voices echoed through corridors, doors slammed. Madame Sio straightened her spine. If I fall, many fall with me. Namjoon nodded, that's the point. She was escorted away, still glaring. When the room emptied, silence returned in fragments. Rain battered the windows now. Taehyung clapped Jungkook's shoulder, try not to cry in front of us. Hoseok dragged 2 unconscious guards outside. Namjoon gave Jimin a respectful nod. You deserved the truth sooner. Then they left the two men alone. The music room seemed larger without enemies in it. Jimin stood by the piano, arms folded tightly. Jungkook remained several feet away. I should have told you everything, he said. Yes. I thought distance would protect you. It protected your guilt. I know. Jimin touched the dusty piano lid with 2 fingers. You loved me, he said quietly, as if testing whether the words could still exist. I never stopped. That doesn't fix anything. I know. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Jimin laughed weakly, then wiped suddenly at his eyes as if angry tears had appeared without permission. I hated you, he confessed. I built years out of hating you, it was efficient. And now? Jimin looked at him for a long moment. Now I'm tired. Jungkook stepped closer, slowly enough to be refused. I can live with your anger, he said. I deserve it. Jimin's voice trembled. That's the problem, I don't know if I still want to give it to you. Thunder rolled outside. Jungkook reached up, hesitated, then gently touched the bandage someone had wrapped around Jimin's temple in the chaos. You're hurt. So are you. That one's older. Jimin closed his eyes. When he opened them again, all the sharpness was gone, replaced by something more dangerous, tenderness trying not to survive. You really made my fake name Daniel. Jungkook let out a broken laugh. I panicked. That may be the worst betrayal. Then Jimin stepped forward and kissed him. It was not soft. It was 7 years of grief, fury, memory, and hunger colliding at once. Jungkook staggered back against the piano. Keys cried out beneath his hand. Jimin grabbed his jacket and kissed him harder, as if punishing and forgiving him in the same breath. When they finally parted, both were shaking. Jimin rested his forehead against Jungkook. This changes nothing, he whispered. I know. It changes everything. I know. Outside, dawn began to lighten the storm clouds. Inside the ruined mansion, among dust and sirens and the wreckage of old power, they stood together while the first honest morning in years slowly arrived. Morning arrived like a witness no one had invited. Rainwater slid down the shattered windows of the Han estate. Police lights painted the marble drive in rotating blue and red. Reporters crowded behind barricades, shouting questions into the cold air. Camera flashes burst like tiny explosions. Servants whispered in corners. Politicians slipped out side exits with coats over their faces. Wealth, once elegant, now smelled of panic. Inside the ruined music room, Jungkook and Jimin were still standing too close. Neither had moved after the kiss. Neither trusted what movement might break. Jimin stepped back first. That was reckless. Jungkook's lips were bruised, his hair a mess, his voice rough. You started it. I also survived a chandelier, my judgment is compromised. Jungkook almost smiled. You kissed me like you wanted revenge. Jimin folded his arms. Maybe I did. And did it help? No, Jimin's eyes darkened. That's the irritating part. A sharp knock hit the door. Taehyung pushed it open without waiting. I hate interrupting romantic collapse, but the police need statements, the press is rabid, and someone very expensive is threatening to sue everyone. He looked between them, then grinned. Oh, you kissed. Jimin's face hardened instantly. Get out. Taehyung laughed. Same chemistry, nice to see consistency. Jungkook dragged a hand down his face. What's happening downstairs? Madam Seo is in custody. Half her board vanished. The other half suddenly believes in transparency. Taehyung leaned on the doorframe. Also, your father is here. The room went still. Jungkook's expression changed so subtly another person might have missed it. Jimin didn't. A tightening around the mouth. A shadow behind the eyes. I didn't ask him to come, Jungkook said. Taehyung shrugged. He says fathers don't need invitations to funerals. Jimin muttered, charming man. Taehyung's grin faded. Be careful, he brought lawyers. Of course he did, Jungkook said. Taehyung looked at Jimin. You don't have to stay. Jimin answered before thinking, I know. But he didn't move. Taehyung noticed everything and said nothing. 5 minutes. When the door closed, silence returned heavier than before. Jimin stared at Jungkook. You never told me he scared you. Jungkook laughed once without humor. I never used that word. You didn't need to. He turned away, jaw flexing. he doesn't scare me now. That's not what I said. Jungkook looked at the broken piano keys. When I was 12, I spilled tea on one of his contracts. He made me stand outside in winter for 6 hours so I'd learn the cost of carelessness. Jimin's chest tightened. When I was 16, I cried at my mother's memorial. He said grief in public is manipulation. Jungkook's voice remained calm, which made it worse. When I was 23, I told him I loved someone he would never approve of. Jimin barely breathed, me. Jungkook nodded. What did he say? That everyone has appetites, mine would pass. The room seemed colder. Jimin stepped closer, and you still stayed in that house. I thought surviving him was strength. No, Jimin said softly, leaving would have been. Their eyes met. Jungkook accepted the blow because it was true. They walked downstairs together. The grand hall looked like the aftermath of a war disguised as architecture. Broken crystal glittered across the floor, police photographed evidence markers, officers moved guests aside, reporters shouted through open doors. At the center of it all stood Chairman Han. Perfect posture, silver hair immaculate, black coat untouched by weather or scandal. He looked less like a father than an institution given human form. His gaze landed first on Jungkook, then on Jimin and sharpened. So the rumors were accurate after all, he said. Jimin smiled thinly, good morning to you too. Chairman Han ignored him, come here son. Jungkook did not move. I'm not a child. No, his father said, children can be corrected. The officers nearby pretended not to hear. Jimin stepped half a pace forward, you should be careful, there are microphones everywhere. Chairman Han finally looked at him fully. And yet no one asked the help to speak. The insult hit the room like a slap. Several heads turned. Jungkook's voice came low and lethal, apologize. His father's brows lifted, for accuracy. Apologize. The chairman smiled faintly, interesting, you learned courage only after ruining the family. Jimin touched Jungkook's wrist lightly, a warning. Not because the old man deserved protection. Because Jungkook deserved control. Chairman Han produced a folded document from his coat. Sign this. You resign all positions, transfer remaining voting rights and agree to psychiatric leave. Jungkook stared, psychiatric leave. A generous explanation for your public collapse. You mean your attempted cover-up? I mean damage management. Jimin laughed aloud. Everyone looked at him. That's your strategy, he said, gaslight him in front of police and cameras, vintage. Chairman Han's face cooled further, this does not concern you. It has concerned me since your son bled to keep your name polished. Jungkook turned sharply, Jimin. No, Jimin's voice rose, years of silence breaking open, no more protecting people from discomfort. He faced the chairman. You called me temporary, disposable, a distraction, but he nearly destroyed himself trying to become what you wanted. Chairman Han said nothing. Jimin stepped closer. And what did you build? A son who apologizes for breathing and a company built on fear. The chairman's eyes hardened, you overestimate your significance. Jimin smiled, cruel and beautiful, then why did you work so hard to erase me? The nearest reporters lunged forward, cameras raised. Officers shouted for distance. Jungkook watched his father lose composure for the first time in years. Enough, Chairman Han snapped. No, Jungkook said. The single word stunned everyone. He took the contract, tore it cleanly in half, then in quarters, and let the pieces fall across the shattered crystal floor. Gasps erupted. His father stared as if witnessing sacrilege. You don't own my mind, Jungkook said. You don't own my life and you never owned who I love. The hall fell silent except for camera shutters. Chairman Han's voice dropped, then you are no son of mine. Jungkook held his gaze. That threat expired years ago. Even the police officers looked impressed. The chairman turned sharply and strode toward the exit. Then stopped. Without facing them, he said, you think exposing CO ends this, you know nothing of what circles above you. He left. A chill remained after him. Namjoon appeared from a side corridor holding a tablet. I hate when villains foreshadow accurately. Jungkook exhaled, what now? Namjoon's expression was grave, now we have a larger problem. He handed over the tablet. A live news feed filled the screen. The anchor spoke urgently beside Jungkook's photo, Jimin's photo, and headlines about corruption. Then another image appeared. A woman in her 50s entering a modest apartment building. Jimin went white. My mother. The caption read, family of key witness targeted. Jimin snatched the tablet. Where is this? Busan 30 minutes ago, Namjoon said. Someone leaked her address. Jimin was already moving. Jungkook followed. Will take my car. No. You can hate me on the highway. This is because of you. I know. That doesn't help. I know. They were shouting by the front steps now as reporters surged. Taehyung blocked cameras while Hoseok cleared a path. Jimin turned on Jungkook with tears of fury in his eyes. Every time you say those two words, I want to break something. Then break me later and get in the car now. For one dangerous second, Jimin nearly walked away. Then fear for his mother won. They sped through rain-slick roads toward the highway. The city blurred gray and silver outside the windows. Inside the car, rage sat between them like a third passenger. Jimin stared ahead. If anything happens to her. I know. Stop saying that. Jungkook gripped the wheel harder. I know because I'm terrified too. Jimin turned sharply. Jungkook's voice shook now. You think I don't understand what she means to you? She was the only adult who ever fed me because I looked hungry. She fixed my torn sleeve before my first recital. She told me rich people bruise the same as everyone else. Jimin blinked. You visited my mother. Many times. When we were together after we broke up, after the scandal, he swallowed, she hated me magnificently. Jimin's anger faltered into confusion. She never told me. She said if I wanted absolution, I should try religion. Despite himself, Jimin let out a wet laugh. Then tears followed it. He covered his face. Jungkook's voice softened. Hey. Drive. Jimin. Just drive. So he did. Hours later they reached Busan. The apartment door was open. Jimin ran inside. Mom. The living room was overturned, drawers emptied, frames smashed. Then from the kitchen came a calm voice. You took your time. Jimin froze. His mother emerged carrying tea. Small, elegant, terrifyingly composed. Behind her sat Chairman Han at the kitchen table, one cheek reddened as if recently slapped. Jungkook stopped dead. Jimin's mother adjusted her cardigan. I invited him, she said. Someone had to teach this man manners. Chairman Han looked murderous. Jimin stared. What is happening? His mother set down the tray. The truth, she said, and both of you will sit down before I become unreasonable. No one moved. Rain tapped softly against the kitchen window, absurdly gentle compared to the violence in the room. The apartment smelled of ginger tea, dust from overturned drawers, and the electric tension of people carrying too many secrets. Jimin's mother stood beside the stove like a queen in a modest kingdom. No one had noticed until now. Chairman Han sat rigid at the small wooden table, expensive coat folded over the chair, jaw bruised with the unmistakable shape of a palm. His fury was so tightly controlled it had become elegant. Jimin looked from one to the other in disbelief. Mom. Sit. Why is he in our kitchen? I said sit. There was no force on earth more dangerous than that tone. Jimin sat automatically. Jungkook remained standing near the doorway. She turned to him. You too. Yes, ma'am. Chairman Han's eyes flicked sharply toward Jungkook. You still obey strangers faster than family. Jungkook didn't look at him. She earned it. Jimin's mother placed cups of tea in front of everyone as if hosting a normal afternoon. Then she sat. The apartment seemed to arrange itself around her. You both believe tonight began at the gala, she said. It did not. It began 28 years ago when men with soft hands and hard hearts decided children were bargaining chips. Jungkook's face slowly emptied of color. Chairman Han spoke coldly. This melodrama is unnecessary. She ignored him. Your father was drowning in debt, she said to Jungkook. Not business debt, gambling debt, vanity debt. He borrowed from people whose money came with knives attached. Jungkook stared at the table. No, he said quietly. Yes. Chairman Han's voice sharpened. Enough. She turned to him with such contempt, even the rain seemed to pause. You had enough when you sold kindness for status. Jimin whispered, Mom. She looked at her son, softer for one breath. I worked in their old house before you were born, I saw everything. Her eyes returned to Jungkook. Your mother knew what he was, she stayed because she thought she could shield you. Jungkook's hands trembled. She loved you more than fear, Jimin's mother said. He swallowed hard. Why are you telling me now? Because men like him survive on timing. Chairman Han rose abruptly. This conversation ends. She pointed at the chair. Sit down. He did. Jimin blinked slowly. I think I'm hallucinating. No, she said, you're finally paying attention. She opened a kitchen drawer and removed a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. Jungkook recognized the handwriting instantly. His mother. The room tilted. I was asked to keep this if anything happened to her, Jimin's mother said. Then I was asked to keep it longer when nothing happened except cowardice. She looked directly at Chairman Han. He did not blink. Jungkook reached for the envelope with shaking fingers. Read it, she said. He opened it carefully, as if paper could bruise. The letter was short. My son. If you are reading this, someone failed you, it may be me. There will come a day when they tell you love is weakness, tenderness is embarrassing, and obedience is survival. They are wrong. You were never born to continue cruelty. Choose the person who makes you kinder. If I cannot stand beside you when that day comes, stand anyway. I already know you're brave. Mother. Jungkook stopped reading. No one spoke. His shoulders began to shake once, then again. He pressed the letter to his mouth as if trying to hold something inside. Jimin watched with tears gathering before he could stop them. Chairman Han looked away. That was somehow worse than anger. You kept this from me, Jungkook said hoarsely. His father answered flatly, your mother was sentimental. Jungkook laughed through tears, a dangerous sound. She was human. She was weak. The slap cracked through the kitchen. This time it came from Jungkook. Chairman Han's head snapped sideways. Jimin inhaled sharply. Jungkook stood over him, chest heaving, hand still raised. All my life, he said, voice low and shaking, I thought strength meant becoming you. Chairman Han slowly touched his reddening cheek. You ungrateful boy. No, Jungkook said, your unfinished project. The older man surged to his feet. For a second Jimin thought fists would fly. Instead Chairman Han smiled. It was the cruelest expression in the room. You think righteousness will save you? The board met an hour ago, you were removed before dawn, your accounts are frozen, your properties under review, your name is toxic. Jungkook did not move. Good, he said. The chairman's smile faltered. I mean it, Jungkook continued. Take the towers, take the titles, take the furniture polished with blood. He stepped closer. I was miserable in every room you gave me. Silence crashed through the kitchen. Jimin's mother quietly sipped tea. Chairman Han's eyes narrowed. And what will you be without me? Jungkook glanced at Jimin. Maybe poor, he said, maybe free. Jimin looked away too late to hide what that did to him. The chairman noticed everything. Ah, he said softly, there he is, the appetite that never passed. Jimin rose so fast his chair toppled backward. Say one more thing. Chairman Han looked amused, or what? Jimin stepped forward until they were nearly nose to nose. Or I forget my mother raised me well. The older man held his gaze. Then unexpectedly he laughed. Not warmly, not kindly, but genuinely. I almost respect you, he said. Jimin smiled with lethal sweetness, keep trying. A phone vibrated on the table. Jimin's mother checked the screen, frowned, then stood. We have another problem. Namjoon's name glowed across the display. She answered on speaker. His voice came urgent and clipped, do not let Chairman Han leave. Too late. The chair was empty. The kitchen window stood open. Rain blew through the curtains. Jimin swore, how did he? A crash sounded from the alley below. They rushed to the window. Chairman Han was climbing into a black sedan. Jungkook shouted, Father. The older man looked up once through the rain. No regret, no farewell. Then the car sped away. Namjoon's voice crackled through the phone, he took the ledger. Jungkook froze, what ledger? The original offshore ledger, names, transfers, judges, ministers, everyone. We thought Seo had it, she didn't. A beat of static. He came to distract you. Jimin groaned. Of course the emotionally abusive billionaire is efficient. Jimin's mother was already grabbing her coat. Where are you going? Jimin asked. With you. No. Yes. It's dangerous. She stared at him. I raised you alone through debt collectors and influenza. Sit down. He sat down by reflex, then realized what happened. Jungkook almost laughed despite himself. Rain hammered harder as they piled into the car minutes later. Jimin drove because he trusted no one's emotional stability. Jungkook sat beside him holding the letter inside his jacket like a heartbeat. Jimin's mother occupied the back seat with the authority of a general. Namjoon sent coordinates. Private airfield outside the city. Why would he run? Jimin asked. He won't run, Jungkook said quietly, he'll negotiate. With criminals. With governments. That's somehow worse. They tore through wet streets, tires hissing over asphalt. For a while no one spoke. Then Jimin said, eyes on the road, why didn't you tell me about the letter? I didn't know. No, why didn't you tell me about your mother? Jungkook looked out at the rain. Because if I said her name, I missed her more. Jimin's grip tightened on the wheel. After a moment he said softly, that's a stupid reason. I know. And a real one. Jungkook turned to him. Jimin kept watching the road, don't get sentimental, I'm driving. The airfield gates were already open. Bad sign. They sped past empty security booths and rows of small jets gleaming under floodlights. At the far runway stood Chairman Han beside a private plane with engines whining alive. Men with umbrellas surrounded him. One figure stepped forward from the shadows. Madam Seo. Jimin slammed the brakes. She was arrested. She was rich, Jimin's mother said dryly from the back seat. Seo smiled in the rain like nothing human could inconvenience her. Chairman Han stood beside her, as if decades of rivalry had dissolved overnight. Jungkook got out before the car fully stopped. Don't do this. His father's voice carried across the runway, I already did. Madam Seo lifted the ledger in a waterproof case. You children mistake exposure for victory, she called, systems adapt. Police sirens wailed distantly. Too far. Too slow. Jimin came around the car, we need a plan. I have one, said his mother. Before anyone could ask, she opened the trunk, removed a flare gun and fired directly at the plane. The flare streaked red through rain and smashed into the engine intake. Flames erupted. Everyone screamed. Jimin stared, mother. She lowered the flare gun calmly, they were leaving. Chaos exploded across the runway. Security rushed in all directions. Madam Seo cursed for the first time. Chairman Han shouted orders. Jungkook sprinted toward them. Jimin followed instantly. Rain, fire, sirens, shouting, everything collided under the storm-black sky as father and son ran toward the same final line, each carrying years that could no longer remain buried. The burning engine screamed like an animal being torn open. Flames rolled along the side of the private jet, reflecting in the rain-soaked runway like molten gold. Security guards scattered in panic. Some rushed toward the fire extinguishers, others aimed weapons at the approaching car. Sirens grew louder in the distance but not fast enough to matter. Jimin's mother stood by the trunk with the flare gun still raised. Smoke curled around her like applause. Jimin stared in horror and admiration. How long have you been terrifying? Since childbirth, she replied. Then she pointed the flare gun at two guards charging toward Jungkook. Move. They moved. Jungkook sprinted through the rain toward Chairman Han, shoes splashing through oily puddles. Years of fear pounded behind every step, years of silence, years of wanting one impossible thing, a father who could love without calculation. Now he wanted something simpler. The ledger. Chairman Han saw him coming and did not run. Of course he didn't. Men like him believed gravity negotiated. You would chase me into fire for papers, the older man called over the storm. Jungkook slowed only enough to speak, no. He stopped a few feet away, rain dripping from his hair into furious eyes. I'd chase you for the truth. Chairman Han smiled faintly, still sentimental. Jungkook lunged. They hit the wet concrete hard. Gasps rose from nearby staff. No one had ever seen the chairman tackled by his own son. The ledger skidded across the runway, spinning through rainwater. Madame Seo shouted, "Get it." Jimin reached it first. He snatched the case and turned just as a guard grabbed his arm. Jimin drove his elbow backward into the man's throat. Another rushed in from the left. Taehyung came out of nowhere like a bad decision and slammed into him shoulder first. "Miss me," he shouted. "You're late," Jimin yelled. "I accessorized." Hoseok and Namjoon raced from two black SUVs screeching through the gate behind them. Officers spilled out after them. Floodlights cut across smoke and rain. The runway became war. Jungkook and his father rolled apart. Chairman Han rose with surprising speed and struck first, fist cracking across Jungkook's cheek. Jimin saw it and nearly dropped the ledger. "Jungkook." Chairman Han hit him again. "You were always soft," he snarled. Jungkook spat blood into the rain. "No," he said, "I was starved." He drove a punch into his father's ribs. The chairman staggered back, stunned less by pain than by resistance. For one flashing second, Jungkook saw not a titan but an aging man terrified of irrelevance. It almost made him pity him. Almost. Madame Seo drew a pistol. Everything slowed. She aimed not at Jungkook. At Jimin. Jungkook moved before thought. The gunshot split the runway. Pain tore through his shoulder like fire. He crashed into Jimin, sending them both to the ground as the ledger flew from Jimin's hands again. Jimin rolled over first. Blood spread quickly through Jungkook's shirt. "No." His voice broke on the word. "No, no, no." Jungkook grimaced, "You're repeating." Jimin's hands shook violently as he pressed them over the wound. Rain mixed with blood between his fingers. "You idiot. I've missed your tenderness." "Shut up." Another shot rang out. Jimin's mother had fired the flare gun again, this time directly at Madame Seo's feet. The woman stumbled back with a scream as sparks exploded around her heels. "Try manners," Jimin's mother yelled. Taehyung laughed hysterically while disarming a guard. "This family is incredible." Police swarmed the tarmac. Officers tackled Seo's remaining security. Hoseok pinned one man face down in a puddle while apologizing politely. Namjoon seized the ledger and shoved it inside a waterproof evidence bag. Chairman Han took one step backward toward the second waiting vehicle. Then stopped. Jungkook was looking at him through rain and pain. Not pleading. Not begging. Just seeing him clearly. The chairman seemed to realize it then. Whatever control he once had was dead. He straightened his coat. "I built everything you stand on." Jungkook coughed a laugh, wincing. "Then watch me walk away." Police grabbed Chairman Han's arms. He did not resist. As they led him past Jungkook, he paused. For 1 second, father and son were close enough to touch. "I did what was necessary," the older man said quietly. Jungkook's eyes burned. "That's what cowards call cruelty." The chairman's expression flickered, anger, maybe pain, maybe nothing at all. Then he was taken away. Jimin barely noticed. He was still kneeling in rain, hands pressed to Jungkook's shoulder wound. "Stay awake." "I'm awake. Don't flirt with death to impress me." "I thought it worked." Tears mixed with rain on Jimin's face. "I hate you." "I know. I mean it. I know. I love you." Silence. Even sirens seemed distant. Jungkook stared up at him, stunned. Jimin froze as if hearing himself for the first time. His breath hitched. "Well," Taehyung shouted from somewhere nearby, "that was overdue." Jimin screamed without looking back, "Go away." Taehyung raised both hands, beautiful moment, leaving. Jungkook winced from laughing. "You picked dramatic timing." "I hate that it happened while you were bleeding." "I like that you said it at all." Jimin bent down, forehead touching Jungkook, for one trembling second. "You almost died before hearing it, typical." Ambulance lights flooded the runway. Paramedics rushed in. Jungkook was loaded onto a stretcher while still refusing to release Jimin's hand. One paramedic muttered, "Sir, we need space." "He gets space when I'm unconscious," Jungkook said. "You're conscious now." Unfortunately, Jimin walked beside the stretcher all the way to the ambulance. Inside the vehicle, as medics worked, he sat rigidly near Jungkook's feet. "You can still leave," Jungkook said weakly. Jimin looked up sharply. "Try saying something stupider." "I'm injured, be gentle." "You got shot." "Yes." "For me." "Yes." "That was reckless." "Yes." Jimin's eyes filled again. "Stop agreeing so much." The ambulance doors slammed. Rain blurred the world outside as they sped toward the hospital. Hours later, dawn broke clean and pale over Busan. Jungkook woke in a private recovery room with bandaged shoulder, IV line, and the scent of antiseptic. Someone was asleep in the chair beside him. Jimin, curled awkwardly, head tilted back, jacket over his lap. He looked exhausted, younger, softer. One hand still rested on the edge of Jungkook's bed as if he had fallen asleep guarding it. Jungkook watched him for a long time. Then quietly said, "Smile." Jimin's eyes opened instantly. "No. You were pretending to sleep." "I was resting dramatically." "You drool elegantly." "I regret staying." But he smiled anyway. Small, real, dangerous. Jungkook's chest tightened harder than the bullet had managed. The door opened. Jimin's mother entered carrying soup containers, newspapers, and enough authority to challenge architecture. She stopped, saw their joined hands, and nodded once. "Good, less stupidity." Jimin groaned, "Mother." She placed the food down. "The news loves you both," she said. "Corruption scandal, secret lovers, billionaire downfall, they are calling it a national awakening." Taehyung burst in behind her with flowers and no boundaries. "They're also calling it the hottest arrest in financial crime history." Namjoon entered rubbing tired eyes. Hoseok followed with coffee. The room filled quickly with warmth and noise. For a moment Jungkook simply watched. People talking over each other. Jimin arguing with Taehyung. Jimin's mother ordering everyone to wash hands. Hoseok fixing the blinds. Namjoon checking legal updates. No marble halls, no servants, no fear. Just life. He looked at Jimin. "Stay after they leave." Jimin raised a brow, bold assumption. "Please." Something in the word softened him. Hours later, when the room had emptied and afternoon light stretched gold across the floor, Jimin remained by the window. Neither spoke at first. Then Jimin said quietly, "I meant what I said." Jungkook's pulse jumped. "Which insult?" "The other one." He turned. "I steady now, no audience, no blood, no crisis." "I love you," Jimin said. "I never fully stopped, I just buried it under anger because anger was easier to carry." Jungkook swallowed hard. "I love you too." "I know. I wanted to say it better." "You got shot, it counted." They both laughed softly. Then Jimin crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. "This does not erase the past," he said. "I know. You hurt me. I know. I may bring it up repeatedly. I expect excellence." Jimin leaned in, resting his forehead against Jungkook. "I don't want the old us." "Good," Jungkook whispered, "neither do I." "What do you want?" He looked at the man he had lost, found, and nearly died reaching. "A new life," he said, "one you can leave if I fail it." Jimin's eyes shone. "Then don't fail." And when he kissed him this time, it was not war. It was beginning. The first scandal of their new life began before breakfast. Jimin was standing in Jungkook's hospital room wearing one of Jungkook's black shirts, sleeves rolled messily, hair still damp from a shower he had taken using products clearly too expensive for mortal people. He was opening the curtains when a chorus of shrieks erupted outside the building. He froze. Jungkook, half upright in bed with a sling across his shoulder, looked up from his soup. "That sounds positive." Jimin walked to the window and parted the curtain 2 inches. Below, the street was packed. Reporters, fans, camera crews, delivery scooters unable to pass, giant screens on vans playing looping footage of the runway arrest. Someone held a sign that read, "He took a bullet for love." Another said, "Jimin, blink twice if you forgive him." Jimin let the curtain drop. "I'm moving countries." Jungkook took another spoonful of soup. "We can start with floors." "This is your fault. You kissed me publicly. You got shot publicly." Heroically. Annoyingly. The door opened without warning. Taehyung entered wearing sunglasses indoors, carrying 6 newspapers and a bouquet clearly stolen from somewhere expensive. You two are front page on everything except agricultural journals. Get out, Jimin said. Cruel, accurate but cruel. He spread the papers across Jungkook's bed. HEADLINES screamed from every angle. Fall of a dynasty. Love, lies and BULETS. Chairman Handi Tianidi. Who is Park Jimin? Jimin stared at the last one. Who is Park Jimin? He repeated. I hate society. Taehyung grinned. Society is obsessed with you. Jungkook picked up another paper and winced. They used my bad side. You are bleeding, Jimin said. I still have standards. Taehyung sat in the visitor chair backward like a delinquent prince. There's more, the board wants emergency talks. Investors are panicking, 3 ministers resigned, Madam CEO has started blaming everyone except gravity. Jungkook set the paper down, and my father lawyered into silence. Jimin folded his arms, temporary silence, men like him think prison is networking. Taehyung pointed approvingly, see, this is why we missed you. Wait. Us civilization. The door opened again. This time it was Namjoon, carrying a laptop and the exhaustion of 10 governments. We have a problem. Taehyung gasped theatrically, you always know how to flirt. Namjoon ignored him. He turned the laptop around. A video was trending everywhere. Shaky footage from the gala. Jungkook kneeling in broken glass, hands on Jimin's face, whispering one word. Smile. Then Jimin's hollow laugh. You're 7 years too late. The clip cut there. Jimin's stomach dropped. Comments and headlines raced below it. Abusive ex. Secret breakup exposed. Did Jaewon destroy him? The room chilled. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Who leaked it? Probably someone from the gala staff, Namjoon said. The edit is deliberate. Jimin watched the frozen image of himself looking empty and wounded. A version of pain packaged for entertainment. He closed the laptop gently. Of course, he said, the country gets a corruption scandal and still chooses gossip. Jungkook swung his legs off the bed. Jimin turned instantly. What are you doing? Stopping it. You were shot yesterday. I'm still persuasive. You're still horizontal. He pushed Jungkook back by the chest. Jungkook let himself be moved but glared. They're tearing you apart. They've done that before. And I won't watch it again. The room went quiet. Jimin's expression changed. Because that sentence had come too fast, too raw to hide. Jungkook looked at him carefully, then don't. What? Don't watch, stand with me. Jimin's throat tightened. Namjoon cleared his throat. I hate sincerity in daylight, but he's right, we need one statement together. Taehyung nodded, preferably hot and devastating. Please stop helping, Jimin said. 2 hours later, the hospital arranged a press room downstairs. By then the crowd outside had doubled. Jimin stood behind a side door in a black coat and dark glasses, listening to the roar of reporters through the walls. His pulse pounded. Jungkook adjusted his sling beside him. Nervous? No. You're tapping your thumb. I'm planning murder. That's the thumb I love. Jimin looked at him sharply. Jungkook's expression softened. You can leave. There it is again. What? You offering exits before doors even close. Jungkook was silent. Jimin stepped closer. I'm here because I choose to be, he said. Stop acting like affection is charity. The words landed deep. Jungkook nodded once. Okay. Good. A staff member opened the door. We're ready. The lights were blinding. Questions exploded before they even sat. Did you manipulate him? Are you back together? Was the relationship hidden for business reasons? Did Chairman Han force the breakup? Mr. Park, were you paid to stay silent? Jimin removed his glasses slowly. The room hushed. He leaned toward the microphones. If one more person asks whether I was paid for heartbreak, he said calmly, I'll start charging for insults. Laughter burst across the room despite the tension. Even Jungkook smiled. Another reporter shouted, did he betray you? Jimin glanced sideways at Jungkook. Yes, he said. Gasps. Jungkook closed his eyes briefly. Jimin continued. He betrayed me years ago by choosing fear over honesty. He betrayed himself longer than he betrayed me. He folded his hands. Then he spent years trying badly and dramatically to become someone worth speaking to again. The room was silent now. Jungkook looked at him as if struck. A reporter turned to Jungkook. Is that true? Yes. Why should the public believe you've changed? Jungkook answered without hesitation. They shouldn't because I say so, they should watch what I do next. Another hand shot up. Are you in a relationship now? Jimin muttered, animals. Jungkook leaned to the microphone. Yes. The room erupted. Jimin turned sharply. You didn't ask me. Jungkook looked innocent. Are we not? Jimin stared at him, scandalized. Then into the microphone he said, unfortunately yes. The room lost its mind. Questions flew harder. When did you reconcile? Did the shooting change everything? Will you marry? Taehyung, watching from the back, nearly choked laughing. Jimin pinched the bridge of his nose. You people move fast. Jungkook said no marriage questions until lunch. Another reporter called out, Mr. Park, what do you see in him? Jimin looked at Jungkook for a long moment. Then said quietly, potential. The answer became headline material within minutes. After the conference, security rushed them through a private corridor. The second the door closed, Jimin rounded on him. You announced us. We announced us. You ambushed me. You called me your relationship publicly. I said unfortunately. You still said yes. Jimin shoved his good shoulder lightly, infuriating man. Jungkook caught his wrist. The hallway suddenly felt smaller. You could have denied it. Jimin's voice lowered, I know. Why didn't you? Because I'm tired of pretending the best and worst thing in my life is anything else. Jungkook's breath caught. Then Jimin kissed him against the corridor wall. Hard. Fast. Enough to make a passing nurse reverse direction immediately. When they broke apart, Jungkook looked dazed. You weaponized timing, he said. I learned from billionaires. That evening, they were moved to Jungkook's penthouse under medical supervision and media siege. The apartment overlooked the city in sheets of amber light. It was vast, elegant, cold. Jimin entered first, walked 3 steps and said no. Jungkook blinked, no. This place looks like expensive loneliness. It was. We're redecorating. Wait. You went public, consequences. Jimin opened curtains, criticized furniture, insulted a sculpture, and ordered 3 rugs removed before sunset. Jungkook watched him with helpless fondness. What? Jimin asked. You're loud. You're welcome. Later, when staff had gone and night wrapped the windows black, they sat on the kitchen counter sharing instant ramen because Jimin refused the private chef on principle. This tastes better, he said. It's sodium. It's honest. They ate in companionable silence. Then Jimin said quietly, do you ever wish we never met? Jungkook answered instantly, never. You didn't even think. I've thought for 7 years. Jimin stared into his cup. I used to. Jungkook went still. After the breakup, Jimin continued, I wished I'd never met you because then losing you would make sense. Pain moved across Jungkook's face. Jimin looked up quickly, I don't know. Why? Because then I'd also lose every version of me that existed beside you. The city glowed below them. Jungkook set down his cup. I don't know how to do this right, he admitted. Normal life, I know damage control, contracts, lies, exits, I know how to ruin things before they can reject me. Jimin slid off the counter and stepped between Jungkook's knees. Then learned. How? With difficulty. That sounds expensive. It will be. He touched Jungkook's cheek gently. No more grand sacrifices, Jimin said. No more deciding for me, no more bleeding as communication. That last one seems situational. Jungkook. Fine. And when you're scared. I tell you. When you're ashamed. I tell you. When you want to run. I tell you. Jimin nodded. When I'm angry. I survive it. When I'm impossible. I remind you you're beautiful. Jimin smirked, smart. He kissed him softly this time. No cameras. No blood. No applause. Just two men in a bright kitchen learning that peace could feel unfamiliar and still be real. Then Jungkook's phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. He answered. A distorted voice spoke one sentence. You arrested the wrong parent. The line went dead. The apartment seemed to lose heat. Jimin slowly lowered his cup. What was that? Jungkook looked at the dark window, pulse rising. My mother, he said quietly, didn't die in an accident. The ramen slipped from Jimin's hand and shattered across the marble floor. Neither of them looked down. The city lights beyond the penthouse windows glittered like nothing had changed, like mothers were not being resurrected in single sentences, like the dead did not sometimes return through telephones. Jimin spoke first. What did you say? Jungkook's face had gone pale in a way Jimin had never seen, not fear exactly, something older, a terror with roots. They said my mother didn't die in an accident. Jimin stepped closer. Who said it? I don't know. Call back. I tried. He showed the screen, number unavailable, no trace. Jimin's pulse quickened. This could be manipulation. Yes. It probably is. Yes. Then why do you look like the floor disappeared? Jungkook laughed once hollow, because I've suspected it since I was 20. Silence struck the room. Jimin stared. You never told me. I never told anyone. He walked to the window, breathing shallowly, one hand braced against the glass. The city reflected over him like fractures. She died on a mountain road, he said quietly. Brake failure, rainstorm, car rolled twice, closed casket. Jimin moved behind him but didn't touch him yet. You were there. At the funeral, Jungkook swallowed, not the crash. Why did you suspect something else? Because my father didn't cry. Jimin shut his eyes. Jungkook continued, voice steady only because it had practiced numbness for years. He cried when stocks dropped, he cried when a racehorse broke a leg, he cried at operas he didn't understand because other rich men did. His jaw tightened. But when they lowered her coffin, he checked his watch. Jimin touched his back then gently. Jungkook didn't flinch, but he didn't relax either. I thought grief changes people differently, he said. Then 3 weeks later he moved her portraits into storage. Jimin's voice came low, and you buried the suspicion. I buried everything. The door slammed open. Taehyung entered carrying takeout and chaos. I brought dumplings in gossip. He stopped. Broken bowl, white-faced Jungkook, Jimin standing like a drawn blade. Oh, Taehyung said softly, bad timing. The only kind you know, Jimin muttered. Taehyung set the bags down. What happened? Jungkook turned. Someone says my mother was murdered. Taehyung's grin vanished completely. Within 10 minutes, Namjoon and Hoseok were there too. The penthouse war room formed around the dining table, laptops open, phones charging, security footage pulled up, rain beginning again outside. Namjoon listened once to the recording and frowned, voice modulator professional. Hoseok paced, inside job. Likely, Namjoon said, someone who knows enough to wound him. Taehyung pointed at Jungkook, question why now? Jimin answered before Jungkook could. Because they're losing control. Everyone looked at him. He folded his arms. We exposed CEO, Chairman Han is detained, public sympathy favors Jungkook so they attack the oldest fracture. Namjoon nodded slowly, that's exactly what I was going to say but less attractive. Taehyung sighed, why are smart people always smug? Jungkook wasn't listening. He was staring at a family photo on the shelf across the room, one of the few he'd kept. His mother kneeling beside 8-year-old him, hand on his shoulder, both smiling into sunlight. Jimin crossed the room and removed it from the shelf. He placed it in Jungkook's hands. Talk to me. Jungkook looked down at the picture. She smelled like jasmine soap, he said unexpectedly. She hummed when she read, she hated expensive shoes and wore them only when my father was home. His throat tightened. When I was sick, she slept on the floor beside my bed because I kicked. Jimin sat beside him. Keep going. She was leaving him. Everyone in the room froze. Jungkook blinked slowly, as if hearing his own memory aloud for the first time. She packed 2 suitcases the week before she died. I found them hidden in the guest room closet. Namjoon leaned forward. Did anyone else know? My father. Jungkook's voice turned distant. They fought that night loud enough staff hid. Jimin's fingers tightened around his wrist. What did they fight about? Jungkook closed his eyes. May. The room was silent except for Rain. He said if she left I stayed. Jimin whispered no. She said I was not an asset. A bitter laugh escaped him. I remember that line because it shocked me. I didn't know parents could speak like war. Taehyung looked murderous. Hoseok muttered, I'll need 5 minutes alone with that man. Namjoon said quietly, do you know where the crash report is? My father sealed everything. Jimin stood. Then we ask him ourselves. Namjoon checked the time. Visiting hours at detention ended. Jimin smiled coldly. I wasn't planning to visit politely. 3 hours later they were in a secure government facility outside Seoul. Rain streaked concrete walls, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Guards recognized Jungkook instantly and tried not to stare. Chairman Han sat behind reinforced glass in a private interview room. Even in detention he looked expensive. He lifted one brow when Jungkook entered with Jimin at his side. You brought him to a family matter. Jimin smiled, I'm everyone's problem now. Chairman Han's gaze sharpened, still vulgar. And yet unforgettable. Jungkook sat opposite the glass. No greeting. No lawyers, he asked. They're working. Good, then answer. The chairman folded his hands. You overestimate what prison changes. My mother's breaks. A flicker. Small, brief. But real. Jungkook saw it. So did Jimin. The chairman leaned back. Your mother drove recklessly. You always said she was cautious. People surprise us. Jungkook's breathing changed. Jimin touched his knee under the table. Look at me, Jimin said softly. Jungkook did. Ask cleanly. He nodded once and turned back. Did you order someone to sabotage her car? The chairman smiled faintly, such ugly phrasing. Jimin slammed his palm on the table. Answer him. The guard outside shifted. Chairman Han's eyes moved lazily to Jimin, still emotional. Jimin leaned closer to the glass. And you still confuse calm with innocence. Jungkook said nothing. His stare had become terrifyingly steady. For the first time, the chairman looked at his son not as an extension but as an equal threat. No, he said at last, I gave no such order. Jungkook's shoulders dropped half an inch. Then the chairman added. I only said she was becoming expensive. The room stopped breathing. Jimin went white with rage. Jungkook did not move at all. What does that mean? He asked. It means, Chairman Han said, that weak people hear ambition as violence. Jimin launched to his feet so fast the chair flew backward. The guard burst in. Jimin pointed through the glass, shaking. You coward. Chairman Han smirked, you see why I disliked him, no discipline. Jungkook rose slowly. That frightened everyone most. He stepped to the glass until father and son were inches apart. I used to think you were a monster, he said quietly, that gave you too much dignity. The chairman's smile thinned. You are simply a small man who found large rooms. Then Jungkook removed the family ring from his finger, the Han crest in black gold, and placed it on the table. It rang softly against metal. I'm done carrying your name as debt. He turned and walked out. Jimin followed instantly. The chairman called after him. You'll come back when he leaves you too. Jungkook did not turn. But Jimin did. He smiled with breathtaking cruelty. That's the difference between us, he said. If I ever leave it will be because he told the truth too late, not because I was afraid of it. Then he walked out too. Outside in the corridor, Jungkook finally broke. Not dramatically. No shouting. No collapse. He simply leaned against the wall and slid down to sit on the cold floor, face in his hands. Jimin knelt in front of him. For a moment neither spoke. Then Jungkook whispered through his fingers, I wanted him innocent. Jimin's chest ached. I know. I hated him for years and still wanted one thing to be untrue. I know. I sound pathetic. You sound like a son. That did it. Jungkook's breath hitched hard. Jimin pulled him forward into his arms, onto the corridor floor under fluorescent lights and government cameras and the footsteps of strangers who politely looked away. Jungkook cried there like someone who had been postponing it for decades. Jimin held him without embarrassment. When the storm passed, Jungkook leaned back against the wall, eyes swollen, voice raw. "You always catch me at my worst." Jimin wiped his face with his sleeve. "No." He kissed his forehead. "I catch you when you're real." They returned to the penthouse after midnight. Everyone else had tactfully disappeared. The apartment was quiet except for distant thunder. Jungkook stood in the bedroom doorway, exhausted. "I don't know how to sleep tonight." Jimin removed his coat. "Then don't." He pulled back the covers and got in bed. Jungkook blinked. "That's your solution?" "Yes." "It lacks nuance. It has body heat." Jungkook slowly joined him, careful of the healing shoulder. They lay in darkness facing each other. No city now, just silhouettes and breathing. After a long time, Jungkook said, "If she was killed because she tried to leave." Jimin reached across the sheets and took his hand. "Then we honor her by leaving everything that made it possible." Jungkook squeezed back. "What if I become him in ways I can't see?" Jimin answered instantly. "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you ask." The room stayed quiet. Then Jungkook whispered, "Stay until I sleep." Jimin moved closer until their foreheads touched. "Smile," he murmured. Jungkook laughed weakly in the dark. "You're mocking me." "Completely." And with Jimin's fingers threaded through his, the son of a broken house finally slept. Jungkook woke to smoke. Not real smoke. Memory smoke. He sat upright in bed with a strangled breath, sheets twisted around his legs, pulse slamming against his ribs. For one disorienting second he was 8 years old again, standing outside a wrecked car he had never actually seen, imagining flames because adults spoke in whispers. Then morning light cut across the room. The penthouse. Rain gone. No fire. Jimin was beside him, awake instantly, hair tousled, eyes sharp despite sleep. "You're shaking." "I'm fine." "Liar." Jimin reached for him. Jungkook caught his wrist halfway there. The reflex shocked them both. Jungkook released him immediately. "I'm sorry." Jimin's expression closed. "You thought I was someone else." "No." "You thought I was danger." "No." "What did you think then?" Jungkook looked away. "That if anyone touched me I'd break." Silence held for a moment. Then Jimin slid closer anyway. "Try it." "What?" "Breaking." Before Jungkook could answer, Jimin wrapped both arms around him and pulled him in hard. Warmth, skin, familiar breath. No disaster followed. Jungkook's body trembled once and slowly unclenched. Jimin's voice came against his neck, "See, annoyingly durable." Jungkook let out a weak laugh. "You're impossible in the morning. I'm magnificent always." They stayed like that until sunlight climbed higher. Then Jungkook's phone began vibrating nonstop on the nightstand. Jimin groaned, "Your fame has terrible manners." Jungkook checked the screen. 32 missed calls. Namjoon. Taehyung. Unknown numbers. A message from Namjoon simply read, "Turn on TV now." Jimin grabbed the remote first. Every news channel showed the same image. Chairman Han being transferred between facilities. Then another headline broke across the bottom. Former housekeeper of Han family found dead. The name appeared beneath. Lee Sun-hee. Jimin sat up sharply. "Who is that?" Jungkook went still. "She worked in our home when I was a child." Another image flashed. A smiling middle-aged woman holding grocery bags. Jungkook's voice turned thin. "She taught me how to tie a tie." The anchor continued. Possible suicide, pending investigation, connection to widening corruption scandal. Namjoon was already calling again. Jungkook answered. "Tell me it's false." "I can't," Namjoon said grimly, "but I can tell you she was set to meet prosecutors this morning." Jimin swore under his breath. "They're cleaning house," Namjoon continued. "Anyone who knows the past is in danger." Jungkook swung out of bed. Jimin grabbed his arm. "Where are you going?" "To the prosecutors." "You were shot 3 days ago." "I'm touched by your calendar." "Jungkook. I know what this means." Jimin stood too, then say it. He did. My father still has people outside prison walls. The words poisoned the air. Within an hour they were in a secure government office downtown. Concrete walls, metal detectors, hallways smelling of coffee and urgency. Namjoon met them with files under one arm and fury under both eyes. You look terrible. Jungkook nodded, useful, brief me. Taehyung lounged in a chair nearby, eating crackers he had absolutely stolen. Your father's old employee died before testifying, another accountant vanished last night, a driver booked a one-way flight to Macau. Hosak paced by the window. And someone hacked hospital records trying to locate you. Jimin turned slowly to Jungkook. They what? Jungkook sighed, this is why I hate romance. Namjoon opened a folder. Lee Sun-hee left something in a safety deposit box. It was retrieved this morning under emergency warrant. He slid out a cassette tape. Everyone stared. Taehyung blinked, retro terror. Jimin frowned, a tape. Recorded 20 years ago, Namjoon said, labeled only with your mother's initials. Jungkook's throat tightened. Play it. They moved to a conference room. The cassette player was old enough to resent modernity. Namjoon inserted the tape, static hissed. Then a woman's voice. Soft, controlled, tired. Jungkook gripped the table so hard his knuckles whitened. His mother. If anyone hears this, she said, I was right to be afraid. The room went motionless. I have copied financial records and correspondence linking my husband to bribery, coercion, and violent debt collection. If anything happens to me, it was not weather. Jungkook shut his eyes. Her voice continued. He says no court will believe me, he may be correct, but records do not blush. A shaky inhale. And if my son hears this one day, Jungkook, none of this is your fault. Love who is kind, leave when it turns cruel. The tape clicked. End. No one spoke. Taehyung discreetly stopped chewing. Jungkook stood so abruptly the chair crashed backward. He knew. His voice was barely human. He knew she documented him. Jimin rose too, Jungkook. He let everyone call it an accident. Jungkook. He buried her voice. Jungkook. Jimin caught his face in both hands. Look at me. Jungkook's eyes were wild. Breathe. I'm going to kill him. No. He killed her. I know. No, you don't. Jimin's grip tightened, then show me without becoming him. The room held its breath. Jungkook's chest heaved once, twice, then steadied. He leaned forward until his forehead touched Jimin's. When he spoke again, it was wreckage. I don't know how to carry this. You don't carry it alone. Hours later, prosecutors reopened the death case publicly. Markets trembled. News networks detonated. By evening, the country knew that the Han dynasty was no longer a scandal but a crime scene. And by evening, someone tried to kill Jimin. They were leaving the government building through an underground garage when the first motorcycle burst from behind a pillar. Helmeted rider. Engine screaming. Gun raised. Jimin saw metal flash. Jungkook shoved him sideways. The shot shattered a side mirror instead of Jimin's skull. Down. Hosak tackled the shooter off the bike. They slammed across concrete in a tangle of limbs and sparks. A second motorcycle roared in from the opposite ramp. Taehyung cursed, there's two, rude. Namjoon dragged Jimin behind an SUV. Jungkook, still healing and furious beyond reason, grabbed a fire extinguisher and hurled it through the rider's windshield. The bike spun sideways, crashing hard into a pillar. Smoke burst everywhere. Police alarms screamed. Jimin stared at Jungkook. Are you insane? Yes. You threw industrial equipment. It felt symbolic. The first rider broke free of Hosak and ran. Taehyung chased him laughing like a dangerous child. Come back, I have questions. Officers flooded the garage seconds later. The second rider lay groaning, pinned beneath the bike. Namjoon yanked off the helmet. Everyone froze. Not a hired assassin. A woman in her 20s. Terrified, bleeding, crying. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm sorry they said they'd kill my brother. Jimin crouched carefully beside her. Who said? She looked at Jungkook and recoiled. The woman, Madame CEO. Silence cracked open. Namjoon straightened slowly. Impossible, she's in maximum security. The woman shook harder, she called from inside. Jimin stood. She still has reach. Jungkook laughed once darkly, of course she does. By midnight, the penthouse had become a fortress. Extra security. Checked elevators. Signal scramblers. Taehyung insisted on sleeping on the sofa for tactical reasons and because the minibar deserves witness. Jimin entered the bedroom to find Jungkook standing shirtless before the mirror, staring at the scar near his shoulder. He looked distant. Jimin closed the door quietly. You're doing that thing. What thing? Leaving the room while staying in it. Jungkook met his eyes in the reflection. I almost got you killed again. Jimin walked closer. You saved me. I made you a target. You were born a target. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. He stepped behind Jungkook and touched the fresh scar lightly. Jungkook inhaled. Jimin's fingers traced lower, over older scars Jungkook rarely discussed. This one, Jimin asked softly. Motorcycle crash. This. Training. This one. Jungkook hesitated, glass. From what? The night you left. Jimin's hand stilled. He looked up at Jungkook in the mirror. You never told me. You never asked. I thought you were fine. I was loud, Jungkook said, people mistake that for fine. Jimin's eyes filled unexpectedly. He pressed a kiss between Jungkook's shoulder blades. Then another lower down. What are you doing? Jungkook asked, voice roughening. Revising history. Jungkook turned. The room changed temperature instantly. Jimin stood inches away, gaze steady and dark. No more bleeding for me, he said quietly. Some requests are easier than others. No more deciding what I can survive. Jungkook nodded. No more disappearing into pain because you think it's noble. Another nod. Jimin slid his fingers under Jungkook's chin. And when you're terrified. I tell you. When you want revenge. I tell you. When you want mate. Jungkook's breath caught. I tell you less politely. Jimin smiled slowly. Better. He kissed him then with a heat that erased boardrooms, prisons, gunshots, dead fathers who still breathed, mothers who no longer could. Jungkook backed into the edge of the bed. Jimin followed relentless. Their mouths clashed, slowed, found each other again, hands learning what grief had interrupted years ago. The city burned gold beyond the glass. When they finally broke apart, Jungkook was breathless. You weaponize comfort now too. I'm versatile. They fell onto the bed laughing softly, foreheads touching. For the first time in days, peace almost held. Then the building lights died. Complete darkness swallowed the penthouse. From the living room came Taehyung's voice. Oh, absolutely not, darkness swallowed the penthouse whole. The city beyond the glass vanished, leaving only the faint pulse of emergency lights far below and the sound of soul breathing in the distance. For one suspended second, no one moved. Then Taehyung's voice tore through the apartment. Oh, absolutely not. Something crashed in the living room. Jimin was already off the bed. Jungkook grabbed his wrist. Wait. No. Jimin. You don't get shot twice in 1 week and then tell me to wait. He pulled free and moved through the dark with startling confidence. Jungkook followed, cursing the shoulder that still burned with every fast motion. The hallway glowed faint red as backup power struggled awake. In the living room, Taehyung stood on the sofa holding a decorative sword he had apparently found and claimed as his own. This place is ridiculous, he hissed. Why do you own medieval weapons? I don't, Jungkook snapped. You do now. Namjoon emerged from the kitchen with a flashlight and the look of a man reconsidering all friendships. The main breaker was cut manually, he said, not citywide. Hoseok checked the front door, no breach here. Jimin's eyes narrowed. Then they're inside. The sentence hit like ice water. Everyone spread instantly. Taehyung whispered, this is thrilling if I survive. They searched room by room through the dim emergency glow. Guest suite clear. Office clear. Gallery clear. Then from the study came a soft click. Jungkook knew that sound. A lighter. He pushed the door open. Chairman Han sat in the leather chair by the window as if he owned darkness itself. A silver lighter burned between his fingers. Two private security men stood behind him. No handcuffs. No prison uniform. Custom suit. Released or bought free, it barely mattered. Jungkook stopped dead. Jimin stepped beside him, fury radiating cold. You break into your son's home now. Chairman Han regarded the room calmly. I built this home. No, Jungkook said, you purchased walls. The older man closed the lighter. You reopened a dead case, you embarrassed institutions that feed nations, you mistake morality for power. Jimin laughed sharply, and you mistake survival for victory. Chairman Han ignored him. I came to offer final terms, he said to Jungkook. Withdraw statements, publicly attribute recent accusations to emotional distress, resume your position after treatment, he disappears, this ends. Silence. Then Taehyung from the doorway whispered to Hoseok, I'd hit him with the sword. Hoseok whispered back, wait for my signal. Jungkook took one step forward. When I was a child, he said quietly, I thought if I behaved perfectly you would love me. The chairman's face did not move. When I was older I thought if I became useful, you would respect me. Nothing. Then I thought if I feared you enough I would survive you. Still nothing. Jungkook's voice hardened. But tonight I understand something simpler. He stepped closer until they were only feet apart. You are just a man, a cruel one, and men end. The security guards shifted. Jimin moved instantly, placing himself beside Jungkook rather than behind him. Chairman Han noticed. You choose this, he asked with open contempt. Jimin smiled beautifully. No, I choose him. Something in the room changed. It was subtle but final. The chairman saw that neither shame nor threat could divide them now. He stood slowly. You will regret this. Jungkook shook his head. I already regretted obeying you, this feels new. Sirens wailed below. Real police this time. Namjoon lifted his phone, I called them 6 minutes ago. Taehyung twirled the decorative sword, I also called interior design. The chairman glanced toward the window, calculating exits. There were none left. He looked at Jungkook one last time. You have your mother's weakness. Jungkook answered without hesitation. And her courage. Officers stormed the penthouse moments later. Commands were shouted, weapons drawn. The security men surrendered first. Chairman Han did not resist as cuffs closed around his wrists. At the doorway he paused. For the first time in his life he looked old. He turned slightly toward Jungkook, as if some final sentence might still restore hierarchy. None came. He was led away in silence. The apartment stayed quiet long after the doors closed. Then Taehyung lowered the sword. Well, he said, that was sexually tense. Leave, Jimin and Jungkook said together. He grinned, healing. By dawn the city knew everything. The reopened investigation, the hidden recordings, the bribery network, the prison calls, the attempted attacks. Chairman Han and Madam Seo became symbols of an era collapsing under its own greed. Trials followed. Fortunes dissolved. Names once feared became headlines people skimmed over breakfast. Months passed. Jungkook sold the penthouse. He donated most of his inheritance to legal aid funds, shelters, and organizations protecting victims of domestic abuse and corporate coercion. Commentators called it redemption, rebellion, insanity. He called it overdue. Jimin returned to dance. Not because the world demanded it, but because movement had always been the language grief could not steal from him. His first performance back sold out in minutes. Critics wrote of precision, elegance, emotional force. They did not know that before every show, he still paced backstage muttering insults at his own nerves. Jungkook knew. He loved him for it. They moved into a smaller home with too many plants and not enough storage. Jimin complained daily. Jungkook burned food weekly. Taehyung entered without knocking until locks were changed, then learned to pick them. Some wounds healed loudly. Others quietly. Some never fully closed but stopped bleeding. On a spring evening 1 year later, Jimin stood on the balcony watering herbs he insisted were practical and mostly killed by accident. Jungkook came outside carrying 2 mugs of tea. The sunset painted the city gold. Jimin took a cup without looking at him. You made this too sweet. You say that every time. Because every time it's true. Jungkook leaned beside him at the railing. Below them, traffic moved like distant rivers of light. Above them, the sky opened clean and wide. Do you ever think about how strange this is? Jungkook asked. What? Peace. Jimin considered. Sometimes, he sipped, then I remember peace is not strange, we were. Jungkook laughed softly. After a moment he said, there's something I still need to ask. Jimin glanced sideways. If this is about reorganizing the closet, no. Jungkook set down his mug. Then with no grand speech, no photographers, no chandeliers, no blood, he knelt. Jimin stared. Oh, absolutely not. You learned that from Taehyung. Get up. No. You are impossible. I'm consistent. He opened a small box. Inside was a simple ring. No crest. No family name. No history except what they would give it. Jimin, Jungkook said, voice unsteady and honest, I cannot promise perfection. I can promise truth, effort, laughter, apology, and choosing you even when I'm difficult. You're always difficult. Then frequently choosing you. Jimin's eyes filled despite himself. People often imagined love as thunder. Sometimes it was this. A man kneeling awkwardly on balcony tile. Tea cooling beside dead basil. A future asking quietly to be let in. Jimin wiped at his face in annoyance. You're crying, Jungkook said. You're kneeling badly. Is that a yes? Jimin let him suffer 3 full seconds. Then he smiled. Real bright, the smile that had survived everything. Yes. Jungkook exhaled like he had been holding breath for years. He slid the ring onto Jimin's finger and rose just in time to be pulled into a kiss that tasted like tea, laughter, and earned happiness. When they parted, forehead to forehead, Jungkook whispered the words that had once come from fear and desperation. Now they came from joy. Smile. Jimin did. And nothing terrible happened again.